Now, on Thursday, President Trump signed an executive order aimed at making it easier for churches to engage in political activity without losing tax-exempt status. Now, according to the Washington Post, the order, according to Trump, removes the financial threat faced by tax-exempt churches from the IRS when pastors speak out on behalf of political candidates. Now, that is, of course, in our system, a no-no. You can't actually preach politics from the pulpit. I mean, you can, but then you lose your tax-exempt status because then you're being political, you're engaging in political speech. Basically, it's pay to play. Now, when he signed this, Trump had said, for too long, the federal government has used the power of the state as a weapon against people of faith. Again, ha-ha, right. Bullying and even punishing Americans for following their religious beliefs. That is not true. Trump said later, telling those gathered for the event that you are now in a position to say what you want to say. No one should be censoring sermons or targeting pastors. Now, nobody is targeting pastors or censoring sermons. That's ridiculous. What this is, and this is in reference to the Johnson Amendment, right? Right now, if you're a church, if you're tax exempt, you can say whatever you want. But if you start to engage in political campaigning as a church, as what's supposed to be a nonprofit, well, then you're going to lose that nonprofit status. You're going to have to pay to play. Okay, that makes sense. If you want to engage in politics, you can engage in politics, but you got to pay the price. And that's just paying your taxes, just like everybody else. Now, right now, churches get that special deal where they don't have to pay taxes, and I think that's preferential treatment. And now what's interesting about that is that this is also kind of a way to keep churches away from politics, too. Hey, man, be careful. Don't politic in the pulpit, or else you're going to have to pay your tax. That does help keep a effective wall against church and state, between church and state. So you do your religious thing, and we're going to give you this preferential treatment where you don't get to pay taxes or have to pay taxes, but you got to keep your religion out of our politics. Okay, to a lot of people that seemed like a fair trade. Now, the Post notes that as a candidate and shortly after taking office, Trump said that he would totally destroy that. And this again was known as the Johnson Amendment, which is a long-standing ban on churches and other tax-exempt organizations supporting political candidates. Now, the history of that, of course, is this was named after Lyndon B. Johnson, who introduced this amendment in the Senate 9 years before he became president of the United States. Now, under current law, since that amendment, churches are free to promote political candidates, but must forego such activity to obtain tax-exempt status. So again, this is not an issue of censorship. This is not an issue of saying that religious people can't have political opinions. You just end up losing that tax-exempt status, which I think is fine. It seems fair. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of churches that don't seem to agree. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have tax-exempt status, and they also want to get super political. Well, that's not how we roll in America. We are a secular nation. We are supposed to have a separation between church and state. And that's how the founders designed that. And I'll get to at least one of their quotes later. Now, Trump's order also directs the administration to consider developing regulations related to religious objectors to an Obama administration mandate. Now, one of them is the famous Hobby Lobby case that required contraception services as part of health plans. Now, look, these companies, I don't think it's necessarily, I don't buy the whole premise that, oh, my religion says I don't have to offer contraception or abortion in my healthcare plans. No, this is all about, I don't want to pay for that. That's extra money. I'm cheap. I don't want to pay for it. Because to me, Hobby Lobby, and I disagree with the court decision, Hobby Lobby, first, is not a person. It does not have First Amendment rights, and it does not have a religion. I'm just saying, it does not have a religion. But Jeff, this is about religious liberty. What about the people? What about the boss? Well, the boss has his own beliefs, and the management can have their own beliefs, but the corporation does not. The corporation isn't a person. It's a legal fiction. It doesn't actually exist. It doesn't have speech rights. It's not a human being. Now, the people inside there can be religious. They can make decisions for themselves. But they shouldn't be able to push their personal religious beliefs onto their own employees by saying that you can and cannot have this in your health insurance plan through work. Now, again, Hobby Lobby decision, the Supreme Court said otherwise. I think that they are wrong. Now, another part of this bill basically says we're also going to protect religious freedom. Basically referring to some of the different court cases involving gay people and cakes. There's that, of course, conservatives love to bring it up all the time. You're making us make cakes for gay people. That's against our religious liberty. Would you say the same thing about let's say a Muslim that decided they don't want to serve ham? Well, that's kind of your job. You have to do that, or else you shouldn't get in that job. If you hate gay people, maybe you shouldn't be making cakes. If you hate pork, maybe you shouldn't be a butcher. Just saying. Your religion shouldn't matter. What matters is that you should do the job. It's not like you're the one eating the pork. It's not like you're the one eating the cake. And it's not like you're the one that's, in making that cake, endorsing that specific view. No, you're just doing your job. That's what this is about. But again, this is incredibly vague, right? Religious freedom essentially means that we just want the freedom to discriminate in public places against LGBT folks. However, even with all this, again, this entire order is mostly very vague and mostly unenforceable. Now, the Post points out that the provision would be written in the tax code and would require an act of Congress to repeal fully. So, going back to the Johnson Amendment, they can't get rid of that. Okay? Now, an administration official instead said that Trump was directing the IRS to exercise maximum enforcement discretion of the prohibition. So, but that's also not a huge deal either, right? Because we've already done that. In fact, violations of the Johnson Amendment are very infrequently pursued by the IRS to begin with. And now, of course, you ask people in the religious right if they're, if the IRS is coming after them for violation of the Johnson Amendment, and they're going to scream bloody murder. Oh my God, they're after us. They're coming for us. They're going to use the IRS against us. Oh, really? Do you have any really examples of that happening? Well, no, but they could. They could. It's in there. It's the Johnson Amendment. Got to get rid of that. But it's barely enforced. This isn't even an issue, really. It's indicative of what I think is the victimhood mentality by a lot of these religious right-wing groups. They love the persecution. It's a victimhood complex. They've got to be the victim. They've got to play the victim, and they have to cry. And look, religion, I'm going to have to say a lot of religion is based on a persecution complex. Well, in America, when 70% of Americans are Christians, and we haven't had an atheist president yet, by the way, I can say clearly that you are not persecuted. You are not a persecuted minority, and you need to cut that shit out immediately. But now, if I were in charge, it'd be a different story, because then maybe they actually would feel a little bit more persecuted. Because what I would do is I would eliminate their tax-exempt status all across the board. Not just for Christians, but for everybody. Like, oh, are you a mosque? Or you're a synagogue? Or you're a church? No tax-exempt status. Pay your damn taxes. Render unto Caesar, bitch. At least when it comes to bigger mega churches and stuff like that. If you're like Joel Osteen, pay your fucking taxes. Stop freeloading, asshole. Come on. I am kind of what evangelicals would be afraid of. In fact, the Post notes that in recent years, those same Christian churches have been concerned that the federal government would come after their tax-exempt status. Well, if they profess opposition to gay rights and same-sex marriage. I just come after them whatsoever. Like, no, tax the churches. That's it. We're losing out on billions of dollars. And you know what? Take away their tax-exempt status, and they can talk all they want about gay marriage. They can whatever. right? Same-sex marriage. Oh, you don't like that? Okay, well, you can go ahead and talk about it. I'm not going to stop you. You have your opinion, dude. Just pay your damn taxes. That's it. Oh, you don't like gay rights? Sad day for you. You can go ahead and talk about it. You can protest about it. I don't care. Do sermons, whatever. Just pay your damn taxes. That's it. This is not a religious issue. Those two issues are a civil rights issue, by the way. And really, it's more of a political issue and less of a religious issue. Because again, we're in America. We don't run or we don't make law based on religious books. No, we make secular law, and we base our values on secular values. Basically, pay your tax. If you have a political opinion, pay your tax. Render unto Caesar, bitch. That's all I'm saying. Now, it does note in the article that not all pastors are for getting rid of that Johnson Amendment. They argue that it protects what is supposed to be the spiritual haven from the pernicious intrusion of politics. And I actually, you know what? I agree with that. Get your religion out of our politics, and we'll get our politics out of our religion. It doesn't belong there. The government doesn't belong in your church, and the church don't belong in your government. That's it. That's the separation of church and state. Do you really think, and like if you're a religious person, you think religious government is great? First of all, you should be in favor of Saudi Arabia because it's how they run it. Second of all, you know, let's see. You should be. I lost that thought. On a roll too. That's how this happens. But look, again, there needs to be a separation of church and state. Okay, if you are in favor of getting rid of that wall, you should not be happy about the idea, because again, this is what will happen. The government will start taking over your church, and that was the point that I was trying to get to. And I just couldn't make that connection for a second. But look, if you allow churches to get all political without some sort of repercussion, well, then you're going to end up tearing down that wall that is so important. Again, I don't want church in the government. I don't want government in the church. And I think that when you really think about it, most religious people don't want the government to run the church. Because again, all sorts of terrible things happen. And look, the founding fathers, they knew this. They understood this whole issue, and they didn't want that to happen either. In fact, Thomas Paine wrote, "As to religion, I hold it to be the indispensable duty of the government to protect all conscientious protesters thereof. And I know of no other business government has to do with therewith." So basically saying, look, our only job as government is to protect people from the church. And that's it, from the influence of the church. So church doesn't belong in government. Government doesn't belong in church. They need to be completely separate. We need to keep the Johnson Amendment, and we need to keep religion out of politics. Okay? Now, for those of you who might be completely unconvinced, well, think about it this way. Think about if there were Muslim groups, if there were mosques that were asking to lose their, to keep their tax-exempt status while being able to do more in politics, to get more political. You know what would happen if that happened? Everybody's head would explode. That's what would happen. The Muslims. Oh my God, the Muslims want to be in politics. They want to do Sharia law. They want to mandate everybody wear scarves, wear headscarves, and hijabs. No, we don't like that at all. Well, think about it from that side. Be careful what you wish for when it comes to your so-called religious liberty. There is a reason this nation is secular, and there is a reason that this nation needs to remain secular, and this is one of the reasons why. Now, thankfully, one more point on this. Thankfully, Trump's order is rather weak. Okay, I think this is mainly for show to his evangelical base, but nonetheless, this kind of does show you where the Trump-Pence administration, because again, I think Pence is more the mastermind behind this, because I don't think Donald Trump cares at all about religion. He's not a religious person. This is all Pence, right? And it shows the priorities of Mike Pence and the rest of the Republican administration when it comes to so-called religious liberty rights, which are essentially just a way for the Christian church in America to assert more power and authority in our political system where it does not belong, and to be able to discriminate against people who are not, who are, not in favor of religious rule. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.